Hey there, boys and girls. It is Pastor Brandon here, and I'm so excited to get the opportunity, even though we can't meet in person, to still come to you through video and be able to do just a quick, short little lesson with you. So if you may remember, we'll have to think back a couple of weeks now, but we started our lessons on the books of the Bible. We're going to be doing a 12-week series on all the books of the Bible and why they are important and why we have them. And so I just want to keep doing that during this time, even though we cannot meet at the church building on a Sunday morning like we normally would. I thought that it'd be really cool but also really important for us to still meet any way that we could. And so we're going to be doing this once a week. I hope that you'll just take a little bit of time to set aside and sit down and be able to watch these and be able to just go through the books of the Bible with us over these next couple weeks. And so we're just going to get right into what our next lesson would have been. But before that, I want us to do a little activity. I have a little activity for us to do, and so I'm going to go ahead and just get right into it. And so I have a few stories that I want to read to you, but there's going to be a little bit of a twist. I'm not going to read you the whole story. I'm just going to read you a little part of it. And after I read that, I'm going to give you a couple seconds, and you have to guess what the story is that I'm reading just by hearing the little part that I gave you. And so I have 3 different stories that we're going to work through here together. And so I'm going to go ahead pull this first one out, and then like I said, I'll give you a few seconds to think about it after I get done, and then you give me a guess as to what you think it is. So here's the first one. Get my reading voice ready. Here we go. "I'm not very big," said the little blue engine. "They use me only for switching trains in the yard. I have never been over the mountain." All right, so here you go. You have 5 seconds, and I want you to try to guess there at home what story you think this is. All right, so I hope that you guessed it right. If you guessed The Little Engine That Could, you got it right. Give yourself a pat on the back, a round of applause. You got our first one right if you guessed The Little Engine That Could. Okay, so that's the first story. That one may have been a little bit easy. I bet a lot of you have heard that one before, but if not, you could still maybe throw out a guess there. This one, it might get a little bit harder. This is our second story, so I want you to listen to this part right here. It says, "The rumbling had stopped. The noise of the Skullosaurus had only been the grumbling of his tummy." Only been the grumbling of his tummy. All right, take a few seconds and see if you can guess what story that was. All right, if you guessed Pooh's Grand Adventure, one of the greatest stories ever written, my personal favorite, Pooh's Great Adventure. If you guessed that one, you got that right too. That's our second one. I have one last story that I want to read to you here to see if you can guess what the story is there at home. So here we go. It says, "They all went ice skating, and the magical part was that when they were with them, the children could stay out and play in the snow and never get shivery cold. Was it his warm heart or his magical smile? Whatever it was, they thought it was just fine. Each morning they would come out to play with him and have a wonderful plan all set out. One morning he even said, 'Let's go shopping today. I've never even seen a store, you know.' So they all joined hands and away they skipped, off toward town where the shops stood in rows." All right, I read a little bit more of that one to you, so try and see if you can give a guess as to what that one was. If you guessed Frosty the Snowman, you got that one right too. All right, so we had 3 stories, and parents, I want you to help your kids out a little bit here. If you guessed all 3 of those right, let me know in the comments below, and I might just have a prize to be able to give to you at some point. I want to do something cool with that. And so parents, comment down below how many of your kids got right, and if anyone got all 3 right, we might just have a little prize in store for them. So you may be sitting at home thinking, why in the world did we just do that? If you paid attention and really thought about it when I was reading those stories to you, what's something that was different than how you would usually read a story with what I did with them? That's right, I didn't read the beginning. I never read the beginning of each story. I just started at a random spot. You didn't know who the characters were. You didn't know what the story was about because I didn't read to you the beginning. And boys and girls, with us going through the books of the Bible, we're going to start in a place that makes a lot of sense with every single story, and that is the beginning. It's the beginning. We talked last time we were together about the Bible as a whole and what it is. And we talked about how it's the story of Jesus. The Bible is the story of Jesus. And so, for that story, there has to be a beginning. And that beginning is the first 5 books of the Bible. The first group that we're going to look at is the first 5 books of the Bible. And we have this awesome sheet that's going to help us out remembering all the different groups that we're going to talk about. And you can find it in the link that's pasted with this video. You can go find that sheet. We're going to make a link to it, so parents, you can go find it and print it out for all your kids at home. And so our first group that we're talking about is the books of law. The books of law, and it is the beginning of the story of Jesus. And that's the first 5 books in the Bible. So let's count through the first 5 books. We've been going through our video that we sing all the books of the Old Testament, and so most of you should know them by now. And if you don't, we're still going to talk through them. So here we go. We're going to go for the first 5 books. It goes Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. That's the first 5 books of the Bible, and those are called the books of law. And it is the beginning of the story of Jesus. And so, boys and girls, you might hear a lot of people say that those books, they're just old and boring, and they don't even really mean anything to us anymore today. Well, I'm here to tell you that that's not totally true. Yes, they are old, and sometimes they can be hard to read, but they're so important in the story of Jesus, in the Bible, because it's the beginning of that story. And like we saw with the activity that we did, the beginning of a story is so important. And so I'm going to tell you a little bit what's in the beginning of the story, what's in these 5 books, in the books of law. It's in the first book, Genesis, the first chapter, even the first verse tells us so much about it. It says, in the beginning, talking about the start of the story of Jesus, it tells us that God created everything. God created everything that we have. And then it goes on to tell us about how God made promises to people that He chose. He made a promise to Adam and Eve. He made a promise to Noah. He made a promise to Abraham and Isaac and Jacob and all of their families. And that's just the start of it. He made so many big promises to so many people. And we can read all about those in the books of law. But the main reason that it's called the books of law is because God didn't just give promises to those people. He gave them rules to follow too. He gave them laws that they should use in the lives that they were living. And so we can look in the beginning, the very first 5 books of the Bible, and we can find all of that about God's promises and His laws that He gave to people. And so you might hear a lot of times, boys and girls, that, oh, those are boring and they don't even mean anything to us anymore. But I'm here to tell you that that is not true. The first 5 books, the books of law, are so important because it's the beginning of the story of Jesus. And we have to have the beginning to be able to get to the end. And so I hope you enjoyed this little time. I hope you were able to watch all the way through it and learn a little bit about the books of law. That coloring sheet that I showed you a little bit ago, print that out, and as we go, fill those in, color those in about each section of books. Go and color in the books of law. That's those first 5 books of the Old Testament. And come back next week to learn a little bit about our next section. Thank you so much for watching.